You are tuned to Kennett Zenith Cablevision. Thank you for watching. It's time for talk. Each evening at this time, Monday through Friday, Rosemary interviews local personalities and others who bring items of interest to this community. Time for Talk is a community betterment service. Tonight, Rosemary takes us by means of portable camera out of our studios and maybe into your neighborhood. And now, it's time for Talk.
The archive room of the Daily Dunklin Democrat. Of course, it wasn't always Daily Dunklin Democrat. I remember when it was just Dunklin Democrat, the twice-a-week Dunklin Democrat. But we're in the archive room, and I want you to see the wealth of information that is here in these volumes. And tonight we want to look at January 5th, 1900 to 1901. And then the next thing I look at is way down here, 1901 to 1902. Now and in between, there are pages that can't even bear to be turned. But we're going to try to look back at some of these old records of what has happened here in the Kennett area and Dunklin County. And I want to pull this out first. Now, there seems to be, they're not in any particular order, but we go to 1909, 10, 12 through the 20s right here, and then it comes over to 23. I do not see a record of anything from 1902 to 1909. Don't know. Those years just, maybe they were canceled due to lack of interest or something. But I want you to look at these precious old books. Now, a lot of the records here are on microfilm, but a lot of them have not been put on microfilm, and I think probably these very earliest things are not on microfilm. But you have to turn with two hands because the pages are so fragile. And they're advertising on January the 5th, 1900, and they tell you what's going to happen in the next century and the county court. And I want to look at some interesting things that these old papers have for us. And what were the big headlines in January of 1900? Well, you see Home Again. And it's the story of two men, Milo Gregory and James Tedderton, who were back in jail. They were captured near Neelyville last Monday. They walked out of the jail here in Dunklin County and walked along the railroad tracks and just made a clean getaway with the aid of a man named Duffy. And this says they gave Duffy a message. The prisoner was serving a jail sentence for being implicated in stealing, and he'd been promised freedom. Gregory gave Duffy a special message to deliver to his folks who lived north of Valley Ridge in Stoddard County. The relatives were to deliver some money and some food. Duffy delivered the note, but Tedderton would not give him money and a gun, saying he was being watched. Well, Duffy didn't find McCormick at the time, but he took a train, and after much wandering around, they saw at the location of an old sawmill on an abandoned tram road where Gregory and McCormick had worked the years before. This is the place Milo Gregory was sentenced to wait with Tedderton and with arms and money, and they waited for the arms and money to reach them. Evidently, the sheriff, one whose name was Slatterfield, reached them first. They were walked to Neelyville, taken on the train to Poplar Bluff, and then put in jail overnight. And then Tuesday, they were taken on the train to Dexter, and then Malden, and it says there was quite a crowd of curious people at Malden, Campbell, and Kennett to see the prisoners. But at no time, at any place, was there any serious talk of lynching the prisoners, either one of them. On being returned to the jail at Kennett, both Tedderton and Gregory were stripped to the skin and redressed in clean clothing, and then, as a precaution, one leg of each was adorned with a substantial ball and chain, which they will likely wear till their cases have been finally disposed of by the courts and the executioner. Now, on this same page, this is an example of the front page stuff on a serious charge. Sam Harris and Mart Elder and George Corder, three well-known and well-to-do farmers living north of Malden, were this week arrested and charged with serious offenses. Elder and Harris are charged with carnally and unlawfully knowing a woman under 18 years old, and Carter is charged with aiding and abetting them. The girl, the case before them said, was Bertie Kyle, who claimed she was born near Charleston in 1884. Father's a railroad watchman. She came to Dunklin County more than a year ago with her grandmother, and she kept house for them. And she went to work for the family of Sam Harris. She says that she went wrong there. Last Saturday night, she was discovered by Marshal Harris with Elder, Harris, and Corder. The details are not necessary, and the defendants have been arraigned. The arrest of the three men on so serious a charge was a great surprise to their friends. All of this is front page on the Daily Dunklin on the Dunklin Democrat, January 19, 1900. Also on this front page, there was a lot of news on January 19th. The killing of Cooper. The circumstances under which the young man Walter Cooper received the wounds that caused his death at the hands of his father should lead to a warning to other young men in Dunklin County. The persons are under arrest. 5 persons are under arrest, charged with being parties to the assault on him. You can read all of these things on the front page of the paper, so you could see this was much sought after in this. At this time, the editor of this paper was E.P. Carruthers, editor and manager. And what were the ads? Well, if you want to look here is a reward. I will pay liberally for any of my stray cattle branded X on the right hip. Notify me at Kennett, and it's W.G. Petty. That's a big enough X, isn't it? He's offering a reward. And over on this side, a name that is pretty famous in this part of Dunklin County. It's a McHaney name. This was J.C. McHaney, and he was known as the Marble Man. And it's for monuments to remember your loved one. And Lentz were the practical undertakers, and they had a full stock of coffins, robes, and slippers. One of the ads, of course, Bank of Kennett had a capital stock of $25,000. T.E. Baldwin was the president, D.B. Pankey was the cashier, and R.H. Jones was the vice president. Deposits as of April 1st, 1899 were $103,000. This was an interesting thing to me, our river route. Now, many of you have heard that in the Civil War, Dunklin County seceded from the rest of Missouri and said, we're going to be for the South. And that made all sorts of problems for us later when the war was over. But it appeared the other day that the independent state of Dunklin, now that's what we called ourselves down here just during the Civil War, might soon be engaged in an international war with the Army and Navy of the United States of North America. This sounds like we're in a remote country. There is a branch of the St. Francis River running west of Kennett known as Varner. Now, we call that the Varney. It connected with the main river by a cutoff, which the government declared to be a navigable stream about 25 years ago. when it seemed that a railroad would never come here and when the people proposed to establish a line of steamboats to the Mississippi. Now, you heard some earlier ladies talk about all sorts of things that went on about cleaning out the Varner and cleaning out the Varney, as they said, and making it open up into the St. Francis and then away into the Mississippi. True, the government has let Varner, the cutoff, and the St. Francis fill up with smartweed, fallen trees, and drift, and everybody supposed they had been abandoned. Now, does that strike a note at home with you that they're letting the river fill up with, what did they say, smartweed, fallen trees, and drift? Today we're going to talk about a problem that concerns all of us here in this southeast Missouri and northeast Arkansas area. Actually, it concerns more widespread area than that. We're standing on the St. Francis River Bridge. I suppose you can tell if you drive across this very often. We're looking at a tremendous drift, and wouldn't you like to drop a hook in some of that out there? We're standing here with Carl Williams, who's a county commissioner. And Carl, I know that you've been concerned about this area in here for how many years?
Well, I started, you might say, working on this project to try to get something done in the latter part of '96.
Okay.
Other people have done things before that, but nothing has been successful until now.
All right. Now, when you say you started working on things, what do you start doing?
I started talking to various people that I thought might be instrumental in, talking to the Corps of Engineers, who...
Now, they had a bridge across, but it appeared to go, the draw was closed up and had not even been used because it was so cluttered up with weeds. But last Wednesday, a small craft appeared at the bridge and knocked for an opening. And another boat appeared from the south, and it couldn't get through. Both claimed to be working in the timber business. Neither was big enough to even be called a boat, and neither could have been working in the timber business. No one had the authority to open the bridge. So Captain White, on one of the boats, telegraphed to the chief of the engineers of the St. Francis River to come and open the bridge, from Little Rock, mind you. That official came on Saturday, and boy, there was a real row, and it was decided best to cut the bridge and let the boats go through. A point being made by the government, I suppose, somehow. Anyway, there's a bill against Dunklin County for $125 for damage for delaying his two boats. Now, this is the sort of thing we really worried about in 1900. Okay? Look at this note, March 23rd, 1900. The smallest Royal Arch Mason. Probably the smallest Royal Arch Mason in the world is Major Willie Ray of Dunklin County, who was exalted last week by Helm Royal Arch Chapter number 117, Kennett, Missouri. For several years, Major Ray and his wife have been the midget attractions of the Sale Circus. He was born and raised in Dunklin County and has acquired and personally looks after valuable real estate interest in this county. He is intellectually quite bright and most interesting conversationalist. He was made a Mason at Cardwell in January last. He is 39 years old. And Major Ray, of course, was a major. He was the original Buster Brown, and we have done several things on Major Ray. He's been the subject of a lot of books, and he had a beautiful stone erected in the Hornersville Cemetery to his wife.
One is from Italian marble, really?
Yes.
Italian marble?
So you can imagine how much it cost to ship it from Italy.
Yes.
And we have no idea who the sculptor was. It very well could have been a famous sculptor during that time.
You have been watching Time for Talk. Time for Talk is a community betterment service designed to cooperate with our local community betterment program. Time for Talk is brought to you through the cooperation of Kennett Cablevision Incorporated and is produced through the facilities of the Slasher Street Church. The Holy Scriptures come